Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Pinos Palace in the Xtreme Studios, just west of Orlando, Florida. I have also from Central Florida, the young 20-something Professor Pixel joining me on Xtreme TV tonight. We are continuing our Season 1 coverage of a particular TV show. The TV show in question is one starring a Nick Knight, an 800-year-old vampire that is a sensitive fellow from the early 90s called Forever Knight. We're on Season 1, Episode 7, False Witness. This one, Pixel, I know that, you know, when we've covered Dark Shadows and Twin Peaks and a bunch of other things here and all that, we get into different things to it, and we're starting to get that kind of vibe for this first season of Nick Knight and Forever Knight. It's been kind of interesting. All I gotta say is I was thinking of alternative titles rather than False Witness. I thought we could have for this episode Shanky's Splendid Speech, really bad captain acting. It's got bondage, allegedly, which I liked and wish there was more of. We could have went the old pornography route, which we really didn't. We did get a little bit of Jeanette, sort of, kind of, and a backstory of the master, LaCroix. I know it's not pronounced LaCroix, but that's what we say here. And then, of course, there was always the, what the fuck were they thinking during the court melodrama thing? Some stuff that was pretty obvious. This is a bit of a kooky episode. It's very lighthearted to me. This was a lot of fun for all the hijinks going on in the episode that I was watching rather than paying attention to the actual plot. What's your initial take on this episode?
Initial take, yeah, this one was a little odd in comparison to our other episodes we've dealt with. More focused upon, of course, the fact that Nick Knight has to be a witness in court during the day. That's the key thing. And I will say, though, I think that compared to the last couple episodes, I like the flashback scenes a little more with this episode than the others. The others were there, and we know why they were there. But I liked it was one courthouse, while another courthouse is going ahead and trying to condemn a man.
Well, take us in. Let's get going.
Alrighty. Well, what's the best way to go ahead and catch a man? Using your vampire powers to break through a window.
He vamps out on this one big time.
Yeah. When it starts, they're listening in. They have a guy on a wire, and they're trying to get this one particular not goon, but what's his name?
Who cares? It's a snitch.
Yes, but we're trying to
the porno lord, sir. I know you're not privy to like 80s and 90s vernacular due to the fact that you're a young 20-something guy here, and these kind of really cool things don't exist anymore, at least not how they were back there. But yeah, this guy's a creep, and he bullies him by throwing popcorn at his chest. This is tremendous.
Well, yeah, that is pretty much it. Oh, let me go ahead and clear this off for you. And but no, the Kozak is the bad guy of this episode. Not to be confused with Kojak. But no, Kozak.
We're burning Kozak for you football fans. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, he goes ahead. Yeah, no, he's talking with their snitch, and the snitch is trying to get him to admit to killing this poor young girl that got involved in their
underage chick ring. Sold into the prostitution ring of white slavery, where she ended up in porno films. And hey, let's be honest, you and I covered every episode of Twin Peaks because we loved it so much, including the movie. Were you getting a little Twin Peaks vibe here because they showed the chick's face there, just like Laura Palmer's there in the background while these two guys are talking about her, while he's trying to get her to confess about it?
Nah, I see what you're saying, and I got a little bit of that Fire Walk with Me, but not the actual show, not what they show.
All right.
But no, they go ahead. They're trying to get him to confess, but the snitch leans a little too hard. Kozak gets suspicious, tosses popcorn at him, and is like, "Oh, here, let me get that for you." And puts his hand on his chest, and then it's like, oh, "You dirty rat!" as he sees that he is a snitch, and So all the police officers are trying to rush, but who can get there first? Oh, it's Nick Knight crashing through the window of the warehouse to come in and arrest Kozak. But their snitch is dead. So after that, they go ahead. Nick is celebrated as pretty much a hero because they have Kozak dead to rights because Nick claims that he saw him shoot their snitch. He goes ahead, claims that the entire police station is cheering him on, and they're like, "Okay, this is it. It's over. Kozak is going down." But then the city prosecutor's there to go ahead and just get the exact details. And when she's asking about it, I think that's when we get our first touch of the past. No, he didn't do it, which we'll get into.
Yeah, I like the opening part here because nothing says late night TV like a little ambiguous porn kind of stuff going on here too. And it's not to make light of it or whatever, but the implication is that something nefarious happened. And the thing that really struck me here is, okay, they have a sting operation. Okay, that's cool. We're seeing them actually do police work rather than following up on a lead. They're actually, actively doing something. And so actually, he vamps out kind of early here, which we don't get to see too much. And I've been questioning his intelligence lately, despite the fact he's 100 years old. That should be a static genetic part of your makeup, but you would think the wisdom of the ages, literally generations in his frame of reference, should help him out with human nature and these things. And I know he's a sensitive guy. That's the whole gist of the show, right? He's trying to not drink blood. He's trying to, do the right thing. He's very moralistic and sensitive. And we've talked about how the AIDS phenomenon in the 80s going to the 90s, this is a different view of it. Plus, it's Canadian. They do things a little differently. And I was questioning the intelligence behind the plot here, whether it was the writing or if there was something going to be to it. And in a way, there kind of is at the end, which we'll talk about. But the fact that, when a guy gets busted after he gets bullied by having popcorn thrown on him, there's a struggle and all that. And he vamps out like, oh, they're doing this early. They're shooting their budget now. And he flies in and breaks the glass. Not one whole time this whole episode, anybody talks about the fucking broken glass. And my wife's sitting there and she's like, man, you're watching this again. I'm like, yeah, this is pretty cool. So it's on. And she's like, what's going on? I said, well, they'll probably do an analysis of the time it takes from the guy from the audio recording to the fact that he gets in there, do the distance calculation, all that, which thankfully they do. So I was almost kind of like, is he this stupid? Is Nick that dumb? But the whole thing that we find out about this whole episode is that with the backstory, of course, mimicking the current story, is the fact that he wants to say and do the right thing, which is confess. But here he says he shoots him. And what I was going to ask you this because I didn't see him get shot. The implication is that he got shot.
Yeah.
I thought, man, they're going to have a bigger time proving him he's not a vampire. He's really fucked up here. But that does play into what's happening in this episode, so I'll give him some credit right now. But initially, I'm like, this is really dumb. This is really stupid. And it's the typical cop thing. You know what? The bad guys break all the rules. Sometimes we've got to. And I frankly did not understand Shanky's big speech about it a little bit later about good guys, bad guys, and this, that, because actually Shanky, to his credit, he's been a pretty loyal kind of dog there, not completely stupid, knows human nature, but here he sounds like Dirty Harry or something. It just didn't fit his character to me, but it's saying that, look, we got the guy, even if you didn't quite see him shoot him, if you just say yes, prosecution will say yes, we got him, we've been looking for a long time. Yeah, there's this missing tape we're looking for that we can't quite find that would help seal the deal. That's why they're on the stakeout to begin with. Anyway, that'll become a bit of a player later on here. But we do, to your credit, as you mentioned, the backstory, see a little bit of Jeanette and him and LaCroix after he's like trying to figure out who he wants to take some blood from. And they have this nice little conversation about music and all that. It's getting ahead of ourselves a bit. But this episode gets a little weirder because when they go to take a look at it, a lady walks in and they're investigating and checking the place out, looking for clues. And what do we get? We find out that she's a mistress. BDSM. I love it. She's got the full body black leather thing going on. This is so campy. It's absolutely tremendous. She's just talking about how cops are sometimes my best customers and stuff. I'm like, I love it. This is great stuff. I'm hooked early on this episode, but some of the last episodes I thought were somewhat dark in tone. This one is very light to me here, but
Oh, it is.
yeah, it's not really, whatever. But
It's
this
shot
mistress,
like it's a dark, serious episode, but it's not.
this one is not. No.
No.
So they Stone Tree, who's just the worst actor of all time, calls him in there, and like I could get fake AI to read lines better than this clown. It's just like go double speed or something, bro. It's just not working. But they basically take his information, and then all of a sudden he starts getting conflicted because Natalie, who you look, there was the American version of the show, Canadian version, and then I think there might have been a sci-fi or a split or an international one, because I could have swore early on we thought him and Natalie, even though she's trying to help him genetically speaking, being the medical examiner, learn to deal with his protein addiction, as it were, from blood or whatever they call it, and the sunlight bit. So that's kind of interesting, but it almost seemed like there's a little bit of a love interest there. Like she wants to turn them because they're in love with each other and they can be together if that actually happens. That's hinted at. But lately it's been kind of like, let's just be friends kind of bullshit, even though you're an 800-year-old vampire that can fly and probably rock her world. But she's like, hey, are you sure you're going to stick by it? Because, when I did the analysis, it says point blank and you said 4 to 5 feet or whatever the discrepancy that would be so blatantly obvious in a report. You shouldn't lie, even if you want to, as the police. So I'm looking at this going, okay. I thought it was interesting the way he gave his information, talking about how he did it, and he explains it, and we're like, okay, or whatever. And I go, man, the defense really is going to have to do an analysis of this and all that. But he lies. And what I didn't know, and I wanted to ask you this, did you think he really thought he saw him? Or do you think he was really lying just to bag this guy? Or do you think and I hate to say this, I felt like he kind of thought he did and then didn't give a shit about it, but then realized, oh, I fucking can't, because I really can't say that I did. That's the whole conflict of the episode.
That's it. That is it. Because whenever he says it, he doesn't say it to go ahead and like, oh, well, I'm going to go ahead and just get this guy dead to rights. He says that because he thinks he did. And then he realizes when he talks to the Crown prosecutor, oh, shit. No, I didn't. But he has gone ahead and claimed it.
Right.
So he sticks with his story, but the holes are there, and he's noticing them now. And that leads to him in that courtroom. I did love that shot of the sun slowly coming across the. I'm going
to talk about that really big here at the end. Absolutely.
But I did love that part. But he is remembering defending the man in court in the past, saying that, no, I know that no, he's not saying that, because he's basically his lawyer. He's saying that, no, to the witness on the stand, you can't say that. You saw he was just holding her.
Yep. Because in the past, he's the thing with LaCroix and all that, they have this really nice little interaction where they're talking about the nature of being a vampire, where he's like, I can't believe you feel for such humans. And he's like, music always gets to the soul. And he's like, we have no soul, yet you still. And he goes, it's amazing. For 800 years, I should pick up playing again, but I'll still never be as good. I thought that was kind of a nice little hint of things that could be in the show, when it once in a while puts something in like that for vampire lore, is pretty good. Because I thought, oh, they could easily solve their problems if he did some of that vampire kind of seduction like we saw in the very first episode, but haven't seen since. Like you did shoot him. Like he could basically tell him he did it, which he didn't do. So I'm still kind of not convinced what some of the vampire rules are, because we definitely know he flies, right? And here, one of the things I liked was, I try to be a little bit of the food snob and the fashionista on here. I'm certainly no OnlyPans food influencer or anything like that, but how do I say it? There's a scene. I always look for the scene where he puts on the turtleneck, and as a blonde-haired guy like him, I'm Welsh actually, and he is as well, so it's kind of interesting, but not really important to the show. But I notice when he puts on the baby blue and the medium gray combination, that's killer for guys with our skin palette and our hair color. But of course, he's got the turtleneck on early on, and he's looking very vampy, like very perfumed up. And I'm like, normally he looks kind of grungy, and he's got the 3-day shadow going on here too. And we'll get that a little bit later. But it's like, I'm looking at this going, he's not liking the fact that people around him are like, yeah, fuck the bad guys. We don't care if we did it the wrong way. We got that motherfucker. It's us versus them. Yeah, fuck yeah, fuck yeah. And it's like, God, Nick, you've been a detective for how long? You've been around how many years? You can't recognize this? You're a dumb shit. And then Shanky goes on his big exposition. I say Shanky's spectacular speech. And Stone Tree, this is some of the worst or best acting, I can't tell, but this stood out to me. Shanky's going on and on a Stone Tree 101. Stone Tree's basically like, shut the fuck up, go home, get some sleep, and get some eat, because I need to do that too. And he's going to put his jacket on, Stone Tree, while he's talking to him. And he stands there for like 30 seconds while they're talking, while the left arm's not even going into the jacket before he puts it on. I'm like, is this piss poor editing? What the fuck is going on here? I don't know. It just, stuff like that stands out to me in the show because, again, I don't know on YouTube, because unfortunately we have these shitty versions we have to watch. We don't have a good HD or DVD release of it. And so I don't know if some of the episodes we're catching is the Canadian one versus whatever, because I've said every episode they've done, like the Raven, they've had the weird green and like blue light or yellow light shit. And it's always that weird turned angle, which that's like Euro trash. That's a particular type of shot. It's not a two shot with two people in it, right? Where they go back and forth like Shanky's speech with Stone Tree. But then you also get in here where you see a lot of stuff at weird angles and stuff. I'm like, I don't know if the guy thinks he's like a groundbreaking auteur or something. I don't know, but you'd see that in the show. But I thought it was really cool when Shanky shows up to Nick to basically say, hey, buddy, I'm coming in here. I want some eggs, bacon. Shanky wants to eat, right? And of course, the whole rub here is that Nick's not going to eat because he drinks blood. And he comes down and he's got his bathrobe on because, of course, in his swinging singles bachelor pad, it's a nice little two-story thing where one side is the mopey brick thing and the other one is the really modern-looking thing. They have a little conversation about what's going on. Shanky's basically telling him, hey, it's okay, even if you're not sure to lie. And I don't know what's going on. But then we get one of the better scenes in here that totally it impressed me more than what the opening scene did when we got all the vampire stuff, because that's very sparing, right? We get him reaching into his fridge. It was 4 or 5 quote unquote wine bottles, right? And he starts chugging it. He's not sipping, he's not drinking it. He's vamping up. He is getting up on the juice on the sauce because he's going to do something. But the best part of all this is while he's going through this personal torment, which I absolutely love seeing his angst, is he's been told by Stone Tree, hey, guess what? Your testimony is so great. They're going to have you go ahead and come to court tomorrow morning at like 9 o'clock, bright and early. And it's like, why can't I just video testimony my stuff and send in like we always do? It's like, come on, you're a cop. And he goes, yeah, but I've always been doing it. He's like, show up. You need to do it. That's what they're expecting. So now we have what to me is the best part of this whole episode, besides the mistress and the porno angle, is the fact that he somehow got to figure out a way to get from his hotel to the courthouse. And of course, he has the medical examiner drive him while he's in the trunk. This is absolutely tremendous shit here because he's looking at what kind of like skin makeup he can wear. This is before Blade did it, right? So apparently Shanky's wife is of a skincare salesman or something like that. And so he's trying to figure out how to do this. And I'm going, are you fucking serious? This is great stuff. Because the backstory, you say, is done pretty well. And they always do that little light bar across the eyes because, that's dramatic or stuff. And so the whole courtroom scene and drama, which normally I despise, this is tremendous because he walks in there and he's like talking to, what the hell's her name? Is it Natalie, the medical examiner, Natalie?
Yes.
They're talking, they're walking, and she's like, and it's like the Mission Impossible. All the episodes were reviewed on that for season 1. They're doing the breakdown. Okay, we're going to get out here in the parking lot. I'm going to get you from the trunk. You're going to walk in here. Everything has no access to sunlight. I talked to the people down in maintenance. I used my charm, like that. They've closed all the blinds, and there's no way they should open. The radiation will not get through because they're double pane, kind of blah, blah, blah. And you're like, okay, they're addressing it. This is cool. I like this. This is fun drama for me. And he walks in there, and then when things start to go sour with the trial, which I'll pause here in a moment, let you fill it in, is the fact that somebody opens up one of the drapes. And so you see that. And when he does his testimony on a stand, there's some great scenes while he's explaining himself. And then you see the light where it is kind of like going to where his hands were. And then he pulls his hands back and then he sits back. I'm loving this shit. This is so much fun watching it. It's tremendous. But if you're not watching it from the beginning, you don't get it. And I think it flies over you. That's why I was saying a lot of this stuff was fun to watch. It had nothing to do with the plot.
Yeah, no, I agree because I prefer the old case, the scenes set in the past, because it's a murder that he's not, his flame went ahead and did it. Like, he was interested in this violinist gets got by, whatever her name is, Lynette. Jeanette.
Jeanette.
And this poor kid who goes out, holds her, he goes ahead, gets convicted, and on the stand, he's trying to defend him, but their witness is lying. And so you can see that past him going, no, you can't say that. You can't claim this.
Yep.
You have to tell the truth. And that is part of the thing that's guilting him. And he knows that he can't lie. And so as he's being pressured by, the son and this prosecutor.
The prosecutor is a guy we've seen before. I just don't know his name, but he's been in Stuff in the Night. You'll know him. You'll recognize him.
Yeah.
Plays an asshole really well.
It goes ahead and it's set. He says that he can't promise that he saw him. He can't swear that he saw him shoot the guy. He knows about the gunshot and he knows about being there, but he can't swear that Kojak shot their snitch.
Hey, what did you for the courtroom scene? We talked about the lighting, and you'd brought it up in your at first too.
Yeah.
What I like, because he's a vampire, they included some stuff. Remember, we saw this in one of the earlier episodes with Joan of Arc, which was kind of like, okay, I'm not gonna ask. You're going
the
to
Bible,
the Bible where they
right.
swear him in, and that's good acting where you just see his hand twitching a little bit on it. It's so cheap, right? But it's effective and it works, right? I mean, if we're a vampire, let's explore that. Let's explore it in modern day downtown Toronto, where he's supposed to be working the third shift. And it's cool because you know what this guy does? He breaks it down exactly like what I was saying at the beginning. You said you were stationed here, and I had a decathlete time it, and it took him, 4 minutes or whatever it was. Apparently, by yours, it was only under 2. So maybe we should start training you for the Olympics or whatever like that. So the guy had did his homework because he was poking holes in his testimony. That's not why Nick confessed. I should say confess, because he's not guilty. But actually, the fact that he got his testimony wrong, there's no repercussions for that. So that's probably like a loose end too. But that being said, it's not really the end of the episode, but it's close. What happens next?
So after that, we do have our little episode of, oh no, I went ahead and I was honest in court.
Oops.
Yeah, because he's feeling a little mopey. He goes back to the police station the next couple days, and Stone's like, I thought you were taking a couple days off.
I love it when people give somebody the cold shoulder. Oh, this is so great, right? I mean, he's like so hurt, like nobody will talk to him, and they turn his back to him and they make snarky comments. If at all, Shaky's working on another case. Stone Tree, as bad as I shit on him. Oh, he was giving them the business. Oh, this is great stuff. I'm sorry. They were freezing his ass out. No, and he's supposed to be an 800-year-old vampire.
It was great. It was great. But he goes ahead and tells Stone Tree, okay, I don't know how long this is going to go on, but I need a warrant. And he's like, you go, warrant? Why do you want a warrant? You can't get him. You can't get access. Kozak is already preparing a civil suit. And he said, it's not for Kozak. And then we do our camera swoop, and we're going back towards that warehouse.
And the scene of him flying is literally that bar in his face, and they just like put it like from the right, then they cut back to it to the middle, and then to the left to imply he's moving in motion. This is as low budget as it gets, but it's kind of cool looking. I hate to say it because it's so bad, but it works. He's really a good actor. He really is.
I enjoy it. That's for sure. But we get that woman from earlier. What was her name again? Like
Tamara. Mistress Tamara.
Yes. And she's
spilling out everywhere in this outfit. This is tremendous. She's whipping them. They're in the middle of a session.
Yeah. Yep. And she's just trying to go ahead, and she isn't wired or anything, but she's trying to get that him to confess. Very much about, it's just like when I had you kill Betty, and
she was behind it the entire time.
Yep.
Evil women, mistresses.
James, can't trust them. But they go ahead and Kozak he's submissive all throughout it until it like goes just a little too far. She brings out the tape and she's trying to go ahead and get him to obey, but then
she's like, we can do it afterwards while watching a dirty movie.
You said you could go ahead and give that to me. You said you would give that to me. And he goes ahead, he's approaching her. He isn't bending over anymore. And yeah, Nick comes in, takes most of the shot because Kozak has his gun on him still. Takes most of the shots, and they go ahead, they get Kozak. He goes outside because Kozak's driving away after he makes sure that Tamara is alive. And he lands. He has those yellow eyes and fangs, and as Kozak's approaching, he's like, "Oh my god!" And Kozak goes off the side, and he's able to arrest him for the attempted murder of Tamara Dubin. And then we get to talk about King Kong.
Mm-hmm. Before we talk about the epilogue, because that's really like the last minute or two of it. Well, I will give a little bit of credit here to Kozak, the scumbag guy. I really thought at the beginning of the episode, okay, this is kind of one-notish because he's the guy bullying the snitch, throwing popcorn at him, which is like, yeah, throw more popcorn at him. Treat him like a punk. Of course, he's throwing it right at the guy's chest, and wires, for whatever reason, were a lot bigger back then than now. I thought it did a really good job, whoever the actor is in this episode, because as far as the character goes, you could easily dismiss him as being, like I say, a one-off. But in the courtroom scene, thankfully, was not long, and definitely not the end of the episode. I'm so thankful for that. It was short, brief, to the point, and had some of the drama with the light and everything we were talking about it, and the flashbacks, which were good too. I thought he did a great job in stand of basically kind of crying, but not like winking at you like, ha ha ha, I'm lying, and letting you know I'm lying. He did a really good job faking that out. But then here we see yet a third side of him when Mistress Tomorrow's, basically, because he's submissive, right, to her, and you wouldn't know that early on based off his overly aggressive behavior when he's talking about how him and the Snitch have their turns with this young woman that they're looking for the sex tape for, and of course that makes perfect sense that the mistress in charge of his fantasies and all that's like, you got to do that. It's unclear whether or not she might have worked for the mistress. I don't think that was implied, but I don't think we'll see more of Mistress tomorrow, which is a shame, because one of the things about the show I like, because it's the third shift late night where they literally film the majority of the show and to accommodate the Nick Knight character. I like how we are seeing the seedier sides of Toronto. We're not seeing like puppies and unicorns and hot dogs and ice cream and positive things and all that during the day, and families and 8-to-5 jobs in middle class America. We're seeing shit bags. We're seeing the Raven. We're seeing strippers. We're seeing drug dealers. We're seeing just bums. It's boring when everybody that's a victim involved in something is a rich socialite. It just is. I'm throwing it out there. I don't give a shit. It's great when we review Columbo here on the Xtreme Movie Show because it's a different play on how they capture somebody. But I like the fact we're dealing with scumbags that nobody gives two shits about. For some reason, that just makes it even better. It allows you to be grimy. But again, Mistress here is beaten out of her, and it's just like, maybe if you're good, I'll let you lick my boots. All the kind of talk that you want to hear and admit sounds juvenile, but that's fine. But what I didn't understand here before the epilogue is when he flies in there, he vamps out or whatever, and yeah, to your point where he flies after him when he goes away in his car and has the eyes and all that, he rips the door off, takes him out, and says, "You're under arrest." It's like, okay, you didn't use your hypnotism on her like that. You didn't fucking say nothing the first time about seeing him jump through a window. Nobody said nothing about the fucking broken glass, and now nobody's gonna say nothing about this. That's the only thing that I thought, okay, they corrected some of the mistakes I thought they made at the beginning or that were obvious, and yet this just was like, okay, we got 3 minutes of rough filler, we got to shoot, let's just tidy it up. That's what it felt like to me, and I was kind of disappointed. The epilogue was fine, but I just was like, Nick, you're not that smart, bro. I don't get it. I just don't know why they wrote that way. Do you? You got an idea?
No,
any thoughts?
No, I think maybe they just wanted that courtroom scene because it was really cool.
Maybe.
Of course, it doesn't matter. It's just that.
MK30 in chat saying, hey, the dude in the thumbnail looks like Scorpio. You know, it's weird because we don't see Nick Knight transform into vampire. What we see, because it's such a low budget show, is he'll turn around and be like, you know, and he'll have the really bad fangs in, and he'll have the really bad yellow contact lens, and they'll do that little light bar that just goes across the eyes only typically. And we got a lot of that in this episode. So they really film it in that ugly green light, that blue light that they always put for the evening lights. And even though they've got some candles and a lot of smoke machines in these shows, which I love, I still think the return of what we did there with Dan Kurz talking about Dark Shadows, the revival, excuse me, that limited run we also reviewed, still takes the cake for having the most combination of lights and smoke machines, because fog machines, smoke machines, you have to have it. You get it in here, but he does look kind of like a low rent vampire, but the guy is such a good an actor, especially when he talks like this and he gets pensive about the past, and then he gets butthurt, then he gets pissy. He definitely displays a wide range of emotions here where he almost seems like he's basically a teenager. What I don't know, though, here is how mature he's really supposed to be, because he doesn't seem to have that, like you say, maturity of the ages. He seems more like he was maybe 14, 16 when he was turned, which I don't know. He's obviously a young man. You know, that whole idea that, you know, you could mature, but, you know, do you maintain the same sensibilities you were when you first turned as a vampire? I don't know, because he seems so naive, and I know that's how they play him off of, you know, Janet and LaCroix. I just kind of don't get that, because here he's having a nice little epilogue here with Jeanette. Why don't you go ahead and talk about this lovey-dovey little popcorny-ish scene here?
Nick and Natalie are at the loft, and they just finished a movie. She's crying over it.
What movie would that be?
King Kong.
Which is a love story to some people.
That's right. It was Beauty that killed the Beast.
Wasn't that Hunchback of Notre Dame? Or no, was it? Oh, who gives a shit?
Well, I mean, it depends on the Hunchback, I think. It all. Nick is laughing because of it. It's like, I'm taking back everything I ever said. You're too far gone. You can't ever become mortal again. Can't be human. Because he doesn't cry over a 40-foot tall gorilla. And she goes ahead and asks about the case from the past, because apparently he was.
She's crying on the couch because of the ending.
Yes. But she does ask about the case from that we've seen in flashbacks, and he was like, "Well, no, he was found guilty." And she says, "Oh, you don't seem pretty torn up about it." And he goes ahead and says, "Well, you know, somebody might have broken in and let him go ahead and let him out that night." And he went on to go ahead and play violin in what was it, like a symphony?
Yeah,
doesn't matter. And she's like, "Oh, see, even you aren't immune to happy endings." And then as she like turns,
what is she getting? What is she reaching for?
I can't remember.
What did we start the episode off with? How did the guy get bullied? Popcorn. More popcorn bullying going on here.
Yes.
And she's wearing the requisite, I'm on my period, I'm going to have my hair pulled back in an oversized T-shirt and sweats on. Not that I'm being sexist. I'm just simply saying that might be something some people recognize. Just putting it out there.
Okay. And then Nick goes ahead and like flashes his fangs at her, and she jumps, throws popcorn at him, and they laugh.
That's horrible.
Well, we skipped over. Did we talk about the scene with Jeanette?
Briefly. What would you like to add?
About LaCroix?
Actually, we didn't mention that particular part because we saw LaCroix and him in the past talking about them, how he's really appreciating a musician, a female that's going to be that, where the musician's partner or boyfriend or lover or whatever falls him, and he's, fallen guilty in the past and all that. And he's in the past, he's trying to stick up for the guy and all that. There was a scene there with Jeanette. I think this is what you're referring to, where they're having a conversation and she doesn't understand why he's still trying to, care about all that. And he's like, well, no, I do have a soul. She's like, you lost that long ago. You're pathetic. Whatever happened to LaCroix? Is he dead? Ha ha ha. And then we see the flashback of him gutting him. We know that guy's not dead, right? You know what I'm saying? Not in the present anyway. I mean, yeah, he'll show up in flashbacks now in episodes of the past. We know he's not dead, right? I mean, honestly, 0.0 chance he's dead, correct? Even though we saw him gutted and turn to flames. Am I right?
Only because they've kept bringing him back in flashbacks now.
I don't know.
You know what? I can't blame him. He's really entertaining.
Huh? Yeah, I don't know. I think that's the scene you were talking about. I don't know if there was something specific about it you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, no, that was the part that I wanted to bring up because I can't remember.
That's hot.
But yeah, no, this entire episode is mostly okay around a really cool courtroom scene.
Yes.
Yep, and that's fine.
You know, after they have their little ha 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 thing, you know, he gets the face full of popcorn, like ha ha ha, you know, the happy ending bullshit. Something I always do is a lot of people now, especially like with Marvel movies and stuff and all that, they'll wait for that rolling credits to see if there's an Easter egg or something. They hear about it. Before it was a bigger deal. Now it's kind of like expected or whatever. But I sat there and I try to let the tone of the show hit me, and I go, oh yeah, okay, they're starting it. Their ending is they started with the popcorn and him making a dumb, stupid, juvenile face. This is like what 10-year-olds back in the day used to think of as a date, where you watch a movie, throw popcorn, then maybe you kiss, and then later on you'd smooch and lead to heavy petting and then babies. But you know what they did here at the very end? Again, depending on which episode you're seeing, they got rid of a lot of filler between, I guess, these two, depending on if you had more commercials like in the United States versions. So I was watching it. So I don't know if this isn't everything. So maybe that's why their relationship isn't as established as it normally would be if you saw the Canadian broadcast. The episode I'm looking at is about 48 minutes, just under it. So I think it includes some of this filler stuff at the end, because the epilogues almost have nothing to do with it. But after he does the little vamp thing, but it's not the eyes, it's just the teeth, so we know he can control it, right? It's not like he's a victim to his impulses. He kind of like smiles, ha ha, credits roll. But the scene kind of changes to what we see a lot of here, that the show always opens with, that really mooding bit of Toronto with the sun that doesn't get very high because of how far north it is, and that gothic type music playing as it's starting to set behind the Toronto skyline. And that's it. So it's kind of like, it kind of brings you back to, oh, we're going to be a little bit moody. I love that. It's a great way to do it. I think the opening's tremendous. It's not particularly long. I said I've really loved the music behind it. It's campy. It's low budget. It really is working. The guy's a really good actor. Him and Shanky still have chemistry. Everything's starting to click here and work. I think it's just a question of, are they going to be lighthearted in a lot of episodes, get darker? Usually shows start dark and then kind of even out depending on preferences. But if I recall, when you and I talked about the show, since it's a first watch for us, one of the things was the fact that the first season of this was late night TV, so they were a little looser with their adult material. Not that a chick walking around in black leather is going to freak anybody out. You just typically don't see that on daytime TV, although today you might. It's moved to a different station, so they might have approached it a bit different in the second season. Sometimes you see that. So I don't know what to expect on that. But yeah, campy episode, a lot of fun. It's one that you'd have to think too hard to brood about or feel really dark about it. Certainly not like the last episode or two where we talked about the one girl getting kicks off of people dying, and she got a big kick off and whacking herself. That was kind of weird. This one was
so funny.
It was funny, stupid, but I was like, oh my God, this is weird. But I like how you're getting some of these weirdo kind of things. And each episode sets up to be a certain way, and you get the whole moral of the story, but then it turns into something else there too. So yeah, this is why I'm really pissed we can't find a good quality version of this, because I think it would just look a lot better, because they do some different type of way they shoot it with the coloring and all that. It's not a 90s thing. It's not a 2000s thing. It's not a 80s thing. It's its own thing. And like I said, I notice it more when it's vampire-y kind of scenes with the lighting and the yellow lights and the blues and all that. And I'm sure there's techniques for that stuff that I don't know the names to. You don't see that a lot in shows, even current ones that were really popular for a long time, like Supernatural or X-Files. You don't get weird camera angles and lights and stuff like that. Here you do. I appreciate it. That's the fun. I can't wait for them to go back to a seedy side of town, and probably next week's episode when we cover that here on Xtreme Movie Show. Any other final thoughts, Professor Pixel?
Nope, that's it. All I know is that even though I am enjoying it, it is not a Dan Curtis production.
Good night to everybody.
Good night now.
Good night now.